Okay, here we are. Council acknowledges the Wadawurrung traditional owners of this land, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the Geelong community today. This meeting is being broadcast on the internet. The recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I'll keep it quick tonight because we've got a lot of items on the agenda and we've only got the 2 hours. But before we do begin, I just wanted to give a quick update on the City of Greater Geelong run facilities in the wake of the announcements made by the Victorian Government yesterday. And with an easing of some of the restrictions, a number of our community facilities can reopen. So by the end of this week, council-run golf courses, tennis courts and basketball courts will all be available for use, as will Eastern Beach and all boat ramps and jetties. And this comes with a clear direction from the state government that sport and recreation must be outdoors and in groups of no more than 10 at a time. We must also still maintain that 1.5 metre social distancing at all times as well. Unfortunately, playgrounds, skate parks, outdoor gym equipment, public barbecues, drinking fountains and fish cleaning tables are all still closed until further notice. And if you need to know anything further about the details, please head to the coronavirus support page on our website for more information. That is at www.geelongaustralia.com.au/COVID-19. Please continue adhering to the restrictions that we've got in place. Do your bit to help the numbers stay relatively low. We've done an amazing job so far, so congratulations to the community. Thank you very much, and let's keep it going. Now let's get on with the meeting. Do we have any apologies for this evening? We don't. Are there any requests for leave of absence from councillors? No, not at this stage. Nobody wants to take leave because there's nowhere to go. Confirmation of minutes. Can I please have a mover and seconder to confirm the minutes of Community Focus Council meeting held on the 14th of April 2020? Moved Councillor Murray, seconded Councillor Mansfield. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Done. Declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations? Councillor Cantell.
Madam Mayor, I have a conflict of interest for item number 2. And one of the parties that are mentioned in the report are a customer of the company of which I'm a director.
Right. Councillor Cantell. Councillor Nelson.
I have an interest in item 11, Madam Mayor.
Item 11.
I have an interest in item 11 too, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. So Councillor Nelson and Councillor Manane, item 11. Any other conflicts? No. If any conflicts arise during the meeting, please make it known. Okay, we have one person who's submitted a question for tonight, so thank you to Sanya Van Hewitt. Sanya's now received a response via email. We can't read out all the questions at the moment due to time constraints, but we are publishing the questions and answers on our website as well as in the minutes of each meeting, so that'll be available online by Friday. So again, visit the website geelongaustralia.com.au/meetings to access any information about the council meetings. Do we have any petitions to be tabled? I think we do. Councillor Murray, yes.
Yes, I have a petition, Madam Mayor, and it's objecting to the proposed tree planting around St Helens Park. Well, perhaps not about the tree, it's about the number of trees and where those trees are proposed to be planted. So there's over 50 signatures there from residents within that proximity. So I'd like to table that. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Murray, Jake will take that. Thank you. Okay, straight into the reports. Item number 1 is the Drysdale Sporting Precinct Master Plan Final Report, to be moved by Councillor Mason and seconded Councillor Sullivan. Thank you, Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. This is a benchmark in the development of Bellarine sports and the Drysdale growth area in particular. It's a master plan which shows us the way forward and will serve our growing population for years into the future, and it covers both active sport and passive recreational community needs. It's well-founded and well-researched and had overview from a project control group made up of city officers and Sport and Recreation Victoria officers. There was extra consultation with umbrella bodies such as Football Victoria, Cricket Victoria and AFL Victoria. And there's been widespread and sustained community consultation under the auspice of a project reference group. This is composed of a wide range of stakeholders, including the Drysdale Soccer Club, the Drysdale Football Club, the Drysdale Netball Club, Bellarine Athletics, Peninsula Little Athletics, Drysdale Cricket Club, Bellarine Peninsula Basketball Association, St Thomas Catholic Primary School, St Ignatius College, Bellarine Secondary College and the Potato Shed. Drysdale sporting clubs have strong female participation with over 500 across all clubs and groups. There's also a strong focus on inclusive, diverse participation with all abilities involvement. So I congratulate the officers for their great work, and this acclaim also comes from the community. Madam Mayor, the total cost is estimated to be about $28 million over the long term. This second stage will serve immediate to mid-term needs, estimated to be $12.5 million. Of that, Council will contribute $4 million, the State $5 million and the Commonwealth $3.5 million. This sporting precinct will become a key priority and focus for future investment in sporting infrastructure in the Drysdale area. There has been careful overview of First Nation and natural heritage and environmental matters. The 32.5 hectare site has been denuded of natural vegetation and shade and shelter landscaping with native plant species is planned to enhance the amenity and landscape. Indeed, the Bellarine Landcare Group has already collaborated with clubs in some revegetation work. And so this revised master plan contains sports facilities such as existing lit multi-use oval for cricket and AFL, an existing lit multi-use field with 2 combined soccer fields and an AFL field, and proposes a lit multi-use field which is combined 2 soccer fields and an AFL field with a future possibility of a synthetic pitch. It also proposes a lit premier soccer field, 2 netball courts, a district-level playground with proprietary play equipment, landscaping, picnic shelters, barbecues, drinking fountains and rubbish bins, and a 2.5 kilometre loop shared path with capacity to be used for cross-country and parkrun events around the perimeter of the precinct. A community facility is also proposed where there's recreation and leisure area, which is one of the proposed sites of the North Bellarine 50-metre pool and the other alternative for the synthetic pitch. This all must have supporting infrastructure, and it will include a main entry off Belchers Road with co-located bus stop and secondary entry off Peninsula Drive. These will all be upgraded. Other infrastructure will be a large multi-function pavilion which will replace the current temporary one. And it's important to note that all stakeholders desired turf pitches as their premier pitch. They also expressed the desire for a synthetic pitch which could be adapted to high usage training and overflow events. One location could be in conjunction with a council managed facility or at the multi-winged multi-use field. The final location for this synthetic pitch will be decided during the year following further stakeholder consultation after the location of the Bellarine pool is decided.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Mason. You summed it all up very, very nicely there. This is a momentous project. The Drysdale Sporting Precinct will define the health, sporting aspirations and the very interactions of our Bellarine community for many, well, not even years to come, but decades to come, really. The health, happiness, fitness and safety of our community is paramount to local government, and I would like to thank the state and federal governments for helping us out in this endeavour. I would also like to thank all the community members involved, which Councillor Mason mentioned, from all the sporting clubs, community associations and the schools, and the officers as well, who have shown great passion in putting this all together. Sporting clubs are the centre of our community for many, many people, but this is not only for specific club members. This precinct will bring assets for utilisation for all sections of our community, whether it be for sport, exercise, leisure or general enjoyment of the outdoors. For facilities included in here which can be shared and used for events, clubs, associations and activities within good use. I have full faith that the final result of this master plan will be stunning and it will be a mecca for sport and leisure on the Bellarine and a great asset for the entire city of Greater Geelong. I fully endorse the key recommendations included as well of a synthetic soccer pitch, more parking, larger pavilion, and additional netball facilities. And I always want to make sure that we optimise the public transport, cycling and walking access to this facility, as it will be paramount, and happy to second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Grisbeck.
I just wanted to quickly congratulate the officers. I think the work with, I've worked closely with the Drysdale Soccer Club, given soccer is one of my passions, and we finally got to a position where I think the soccer club is very grateful for the work that the officers have done, and we've got to the point where we now can look at the master plan, looking at a synthetic pitch for the whole of the Bellarine for the southern part of Geelong. So that's a really good outcome, and now we look forward to going forth and getting those facilities up and running with the $8.5 million that's ready and willing to go. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken.
Just very quickly, Madam Mayor, I just wish to draw attention to also thank the state and federal governments for their financial support. For Councillor Grisbeck and I, this is actually a bit of a case study and benchmark for what we're trying to do in the northern suburbs with the Lara Sports Precinct Master Plan. We would welcome $5 million from the state government, and we would welcome $3.5 million from the federal government out into the Lara Sports Plan. So we see this as a really good example of how the three tiers of governments work together, and we would encourage the federal and state governments to have a look at the Lara project if they're looking for another similar opportunity to invest in the local community in Geelong.
Thanks, Councillor Aitken. Good point. Councillor Contell.
I'll make it very short. Just from a functionality perspective, I applaud the foresight to include the synthetic pitch. I think there's enough people around here that are engaged in local sporting activities, but particularly with soccer, what we're seeing in the north over the last sort of 10 years or so is that clubs have been restricted in their ability to be able to train and play throughout the entire year on standard turf pitches because of drainage and the like. What the synthetic pitch obviously does, it gives all year round usage for that facility. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity to be able to start a greenfield site and have that consideration for a synthetic pitch. And obviously that's what Councillor Aitken and Grisbeck will be pushing for in the north, I've got no doubt.
Thanks, Councillor Contell. That's a really good point. I'd also like to congratulate the team for getting the scoping study for the pool done in time, for that to be included in this as well, because I think that's a critical piece of infrastructure for the Drysdale Sporting Precinct. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. I think it's been very well summed up. I thank all my colleagues for their support, and I commend the motion.
Thank you for the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Excellent. Item 2, review of hard waste services, to be moved by Councillor Nelson. Just wait till Councillor Contell excuses himself. And seconded Councillor Aitken. Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll do my best to be as quick as I can, knowing the amount of agenda items and the fact that I haven't got my glasses, so I can't see my screen. This is certainly an item that is close to my heart, being the chair of waste, and it's something I ran for. I can't have as an election commitment. Thank you, Councillor. But it was something I campaigned for back in 2017 for hard rubbish. This report requests 2 hard rubbish collections because the hard waste itself, the system, has been so successful. Coming in thick and fast. It has been so successful, thank you, Councillor Manane, that 2,484 tonnes of waste has been collected in the last 12 months. And with tip fees getting higher and higher, with state government charges, some people are looking to dump their waste beside railway lines and elsewhere where people can dump rubbish, and that's not right. Dumping it at other collection services such as St Vinny's is not right either, so this is a good opportunity for people to ring up council or jump online and book a hard rubbish collection. You can now get 2 hard rubbish collections, which is great. So those people looking for an alternative to dumping their rubbish or putting it at St Vinny's or wherever, which is not viable either, can ring council. And for the first time, mattresses will be allowed. So we've all seen mattresses on the sides of the road and along train lines, so this will be great for people to get rid of their mattresses free of charge. And I urge people to get involved in this new collection with 2 collections, as I said. And Council's intent with hard rubbish is twofold. Well, it's more than twofold, but it's to reduce the amount of household items dumped, but also it reduces landfill. So I'll leave it to my other fellow councillors to have their say. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Nelson. Councillor Aitken. Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Murray.
I'll be very quick. Look, this is a real success story, the hard waste service. Obviously well supported by everyone out there, and in fact I've used it myself. The COVID-19 has presented opportunities to clean up a garage at home, and very happy with the service and the fact now that you have additional booking per year and the inclusion of mattresses is a bonus. So I congratulate all those involved in this service.
Well, thanks, Councillor Murray. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just quickly, and I say this, I guess, when waste is mentioned about when we're dealing with waste, people have to remember it's your waste. We are here as a council to help you deal with your waste, but it's ultimately your responsibility what you do with it. What we're doing is providing good options for you to make sure that waste is disposed of in a proper manner that is dealt with so it doesn't impact any more than it is going to on the environment, and also not about the amenities of neighbourhoods where rubbish has been known to be dumped. So it's your responsibility. So use the offerings that council are putting out there. They are for everyone's benefit. And I think also a gentle reminder is the services offered through the depots on different dates and times that are well advertised for, take paints, oils, batteries, etc., down to, and chemicals, down to the depot, so they also don't go down gutters or find their way to environmental areas. So I think the hard waste service has been a good success story, but also it's actually a good complement to what is already, I guess, a very comprehensive waste system we have, and we need to make sure we keep promoting it, we keep using it properly. And as I said this the other week or so, don't be afraid to dob in someone who dumps. It's your neighbourhood, it's your environment, it's your backyard. Don't be afraid to let it be known that someone's gone and dumped rubbish where it shouldn't be, because it's the only way we will continue to reduce that and make sure our environment is kept at its best. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. A lot of really good points there. I could almost say that you really know how to talk rubbish.
Please do. I won't be offended.
Font of knowledge. Any other councillors to comment? Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, and I think that's really timely, similar to what Councillor Nelson and Councillor Aiken have said in relation to it is the time, and Councillor Murray, it is the time for cleaning out, but we really need to, as Councillor Howard has said, we really need to be careful about where our waste goes, and unfortunately the charity bins outside off Separation Street are not the place for it. Please be really careful about where you leave that. It's all very well to think that we're donating to charity, but it's now actually costing them money to remove some of those items that are either been rained on or not really suitable for recycling. So really pleased that we introduced, this council was the one that introduced the hard waste, and now we've seen the benefits of it and now increasing it. So thank you to everybody that's used it, and you now have options to have 2 clean outs per year. Thank you.
Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you. Look, I'd just like to add that it's worth people having a think before they send something to hard rubbish, whether there can be a bit more life squeezed out of the items that they're putting out. As everyone's talked about, there's a lot of clearing out happening at the minute, but there are some fabulous buy, swap and sell groups online. You've got your old school ones, Gumtree, eBay, there's Facebook Marketplace, there's all sorts of places where you can get rid of things even for free, and people will come and take all kinds of things. Having recently moved house, there was a lot of items that people were very willing, really unusual things that people were obviously sitting there waiting to see come up, and they'd come by and pick it up, and it's great. It means someone else is getting some life out of something that I no longer needed. So just have a think about other ways of using the things that you no longer have any use for before you send them off to hard waste.
Excellent point. Any other comments? Councillor Aitken, you ready?
Thank you very much, Mayor Asher. Look, 2 points I want to make. One is that, look, we do make mistakes, but we actually also do successful things as well too, and hard waste is one of our successful things that this council will be remembered for. And in fact, the significance of it has increased with COVID-19. I do think it's a really good move that we're introducing the mattresses, because I have had a lot of people concerned about that, and we have responded to that to now add mattresses in the collection process. The success of the current program is 1 in 5 residents have actually used it in Geelong, so that's a fantastic stat. What is also good is that this review is extending it for another 12 months, so hopefully the new council that's elected in October actually has the strength and commitment to actually make this a permanent service, because certainly that's what this service does deserve, is to be permanent. But my other focus, and I want to look down the lens of the camera, and that is to the people of Geelong that have been increasing dumping over the last 6 weeks during COVID-19. We've had a 41% increase in the amount of illegal dumping reports before the City of Greater Geelong, and that has actually put the organisation under significant stress and pressure, and given an unnecessary additional expenditure that the community doesn't need during this time. This particular service that we're supporting tonight is an opportunity for you not to be dumping your waste. You are being given the opportunity to the end of June, if you haven't actually had a hard waste collection, to actually book that in now. You can book it in online, or you can ring the council number on 5272 5272, and you can actually book in a hard waste collection system. And I also tell people, if you see people illegally dumping, use that same telephone number to tell council, because we can issue on-the-spot fines of $330 if we catch people illegally dumping on site. And if it is significant dumping, there's actually penalties under the EPA of up to $8,000 that actually can put in. So we are serious at Geelong about the impact of illegal dumping and waste. This is an opportunity to provide a service to you so you don't have to do it. And I encourage the community to book it online if you can, ring up if you need to phone the council. After the 1st of July, you'll be entitled to another 2 hard waste collection systems, so please take advantage of that. But council is ready to issue on-the-spot fines for the community if they're found illegal dumping. And the EPA has also told us as well too that their official line for people to took and dob in a dumper is available 24 hours a day, and that particular number is 1300 372 842. And the EPA have said themselves that they will work in unison for council to try to stop the scourge of illegal dumping that's occurring at the present time.
Councillor Aitken, I think we've found our promo video person there. Well done. Councillor Nelson to close.
Madam Mayor, I'll finish on a positive note. On average, we've had 1,200 collections per month, and I will give credit where credit's due. In the local paper today, they were spruiking the fact that how great hard rubbish collection is. So I'll finish on this note. The suburbs that have had the most utilisation or take-up rates, I'll name those with your indulgence, Madam Mayor, and they are North Shore, Breakwater, Clifton Springs, Corio, Ocean Grove, Grovedale and Whittington. So well done to those suburbs, and let's hope that the rest of Geelong can take up our offer. Thanks.
Well done. Thanks, Councillor Nelson. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. We will call Councillor Contell back in. Councillor Aitken's promotional video moment.
I can hear it from Miracle Street.
Item 3, Sparrowvale Wetlands Master Plan, to be moved by Councillor Contell and seconded by Councillor Manane here. Thanks, Councillor Manane. Thanks,
Madam Mayor, thank you. If you thought the waste discussion was exciting, wait till you hear about the Sparrowvale Wetlands Master Plan, which Council's seeking approval to release for community engagement and stakeholder feedback between mid-May and the 10th of July. As most would be aware that have read the report, Council acquired this, is acquiring the land total proximity of 500 hectares, which adjoins the Barwon River and is known as the Sparrowland Wetlands. It was acquired initially as the end of drainage solution for the stormwater for Armstrong Creek and Horseshoe Bend development precincts. It adjoins the Lake Connewarre State Game Reserve, which forms part of the Port Phillip Bay, and also the Bellarine Peninsula Ramsar site. The wetlands also form an important part of the Wadawurrung cultural heritage, and there are some 39 registered Aboriginal sites within the 5 kilometre radius. The draft plans presented in 3 phases to inform the activities over time as the site becomes more accessible and safe for people to utilise. Phase 1, which is the one that we'll see first of all between last year and 2022, will include the completion of the major drainage infrastructure works, plus some pest, plant and animal control and protection of threatened species. Then between 2022 and 2030 will include the establishment of public parklands and facilities for people to use, and then between 2030 and 2040 it will connect the Barwon River Trail to Geelong, with upgrades to the walking tracks and the like. So you can see it's a long-term plan. It covers a wide span of land, and so we're really looking forward to, I guess, to receiving as much feedback as we possibly can. There's some interesting developments of potential use of the land, so I really encourage people to read the master plan and put forward their thoughts on what the potential uses could be and how we could better utilise that space going forward. So I'll leave it at that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Contell. Councillor Manine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Contell. Sparrowland Wetlands, this will be a new nature reserve, I think as inspiring and as unique as anywhere in Australia, and is going to make living in Armstrong Creek an even more enjoyable place to live. A pretty special project with huge environmental and recreational benefits for people living not only nearby but throughout Geelong. The mixture of natural and constructed wetlands will feature 140 hectares of public open space, allowing locals and visitors to enjoy such activities as walking, cycling, bird watching and natural appreciation, so a pretty all-encompassing opportunity. It presents an historic opportunity for the community to be involved in the creation of an exceptional and maybe even an iconic development, and I'm particularly keen to hear the views of the people of Geelong and specifically Armstrong Creek. The wetlands which adjoins the Barwon River and the internationally significant wetlands of Lake Connewarre and Hospital Swamps was acquired by the city some time ago. The entire site falls within the Barwon River floodplain, including 4 kilometres of river frontage. The 500-hectare site, which is the size of about 250 MCG football ovals, was actually the first site of the Geelong Cup, staged by the Geelong Racing Club in 1872. Did you know that, Pete? You were there, okay, right. And at that stage included a large timber grandstand, and they actually had their own railway branch line, so it's a far cry from what it is today. The mixture of natural and constructed wetlands will be the home of a vast array of plants and animal life, protecting increasingly the region's biodiversity and serving as a major draw card for locals and visitors. The area currently provides habitat for several bird species, including the critically endangered yellow-bellied parrot, and an increasing number of water birds that visit our area on an annual basis. So we will now have an 8-week community engagement period, and I'd encourage all members of the Geelong community to have their say, as this site could become a favourite recreational spot for yourself, for your families and for future generations in our city. So please visit our site and have your say. I fully commend the report. Thank you.
Councillor Manane. Any other comments on this one? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Asher. This is really an exciting outcome to a mistake made years ago in overlooking drainage design for the new Armstrong Creek developments. And trying not to repeat what others have said, I really support what's already been said. But 200 hectares will be a stormwater buffer and wetlands set up to protect Lake Conowariant Hospital Swamp and Reedy Lake from inundation of fresh water. And within these areas there are 5 main ecological vegetation classes, 5 threatened species and 59 significant flora. And authoritative reports make it clear in this document that most, but not all, is in poor environmental condition. It's interesting to note that before a European settlement, the Barwon River was tidal all the way to Geelong until 2 barrages were built to facilitate irrigation for market gardens with fresh water from the Barwon River. Until then, the native flora species were saline and estuarine in character. Much has been threatened or degraded. Sparrowvale can now act to mitigate further stormwater and freshwater runoff effects on the downstream lake systems, all part of the Port Phillip Bay and Bellarine Peninsula Ramsar site. And Madam Mayor, Ramsar is an international convention signed in 1975 to protect the habitat of migratory birds and protects and provides for national action and international cooperation regarding the conservation of wetlands and wise, sustainable use of their resources. But there are other agreements also. There's CAMBA, the China-Australia Migratory Bird Agreement, signed in 1988. There's JAMBA, the Japanese Migratory Birds Agreement, signed in 1981. And ROCAMBA, the Republic of Korea and Australia Migratory Birds Agreement, signed in 2007. Then, on top of all of that, there's the East Asian Flyway Partnership, designed to assist migratory birds on their stopover feeds from where they began. And so I congratulate city officers for their foresight and collaboration with Parks Vic, the CCMA and DELP, and with the many other interested stakeholders, environmental, heritage, recreational, educational and tourism, with all of whom further consultation will only make a higher quality master plan and concurrently produce a world-class nature reserve. I commend the recommendation.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'd just like to say that this is really a great example of a clever and creative solution to a problem that could have just been looked at as purely a drainage issue, but some really creative thinking has turned this into a fabulous opportunity for that whole area and our municipality more broadly, with potentially some fabulous environmental outcomes if this all goes ahead. So very interested to hear from the community about this one. Please, as always, give us your thoughts on this one, because it is a really important project, and we're keen to hear what you've got to say.
Thanks, Councillor Mansfield. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, quickly, it is such an exciting prospect and the potential for this site, and it's right on our doorstep. Like it's only a few minutes' drive from where we are now. And so I'm not too sure, Councillor Jim, if we've missed too many of the migratory birds, but there might be room for the hooded plover down there, perhaps. But as I say, exciting project, and maybe in 10 to 15 years' time, a world-class attraction for tourists as well. So yeah, it's very exciting.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. Any other comments? Back Back to Councillor Contell to close.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So as you can appreciate, there's so much more to this, Madam Mayor, than just being a drainage solution. So much more to it, particularly around birds and wildlife and significant environmental opportunities, obviously. The master plan, its goal and objectives are to obviously prioritise the actions that will potentially deliver a nationally significant conservation reserve, as many have alluded to. So with that, I'll leave it to you to close, Madam Mayor.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Contell. We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Okay, item 4, C410, Planning Scheme Amendment, Public Acquisition Overlays Armstrong Creek Growth Area, to be moved Councillor Sullivan and seconded Councillor Mason. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As stated, what we have here before us is seek council approval to prepare and exhibit Planning Scheme Amendment C410 to apply the public acquisition overlay in the Armstrong Creek Growth Area. Now, to facilitate development in the Armstrong Creek urban growth area, land is required for public infrastructure, including upgrading of roads, drainage infrastructure and sporting reserves. This infrastructure is identified in the precinct structure plans and development contribution plans. These have both been subject to public notification and review through their retrospective planning scheme amendment processes. Now, to ensure the timely delivery of these 3 retarding basins or wetlands, 5 road intersection upgrades and 3 sporting reserves, a public acquisition overlay is necessary. Each of these projects are critical to the ongoing development of the Armstrong Creek growth area, based on road safety, facilitating ongoing development, or meeting a DCP infrastructure timing trigger. We have an attachment here which shows the location and strategic assessment for each of these projects. The application of the public acquisition overlay to 18 properties is recommended to facilitate the land acquisition for these critical projects. The PAO would cover part of 11 properties and the entire of 7 land parcels. Letters have been sent to the landowners to advise them of the city's intent to acquire land and the proposed amendment process. Officers have met with 10 landowners to discuss the specifics of each of their properties. Now, the city will be collecting development contributions and public open space contributions from developments to fund these land purchases, which will result in direct fiscal and social benefit for our community. Under the proposal, landowners will receive a payment based on an independent assessment of their land's market value, which is in line with Victorian legislation. Now, this is not something that your local government takes lightly, and all due process has been met. All due proper engagement has taken place. This is a necessary step for our community and is a step which is relied on by all parties involved. If carried tonight, the amendment will be open for public input and will be independently reviewed, so the community will get a chance to have their say. And that is what this is about, and with that I move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. I think Councillor Sullivan's expressed it all extremely clearly. The only thing that I can add is add more detail. And I'd just like to say that it really has been necessary to do this POA, and we have to enter that process now with the ultimate possibility of appeal if people so desire. But specifically, we include the ultimate drainage link to Sparrowland Wetlands, the Horseshoe Bend Road diversion, drainage and sports field, the intersection the intersection of the Surf Coast Highway and Boundary Road, the intersection of Surf Coast Highway, Whites Road and Sports Fields, and the Sports Fields West Precinct, and finally the intersection of Horseshoe Bend Road and Boundary Road. All elements of land in these areas will require some public acquisition overlay.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments on this one? Nope. Okay, Councillor Sullivan to close.
Nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Okay, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Okay. Item 5 is the Barwon Heads Arts and Community Hub, once again to be moved by Councillor Sullivan and seconded Councillor Mason. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. It is my pleasure to bring this before Council this evening to seek approval on the preferred siting and option for design and development of the Barwon Heads Arts and Community Hub at 5 Clifford Parade, Barwon Heads. Now, prior to the 2018 election, the Victorian Government announced a commitment of $1 million towards the development of an arts hub for Barwon Heads. Now, throughout this process, local stakeholder groups in regards to the development have been consulted and assessed. The proposal we have here this evening outlines the refurbishment of the existing building, including a flexible studio and program spaces. It proposes the construction of a car park for 20 cars, a maker space, a casual studio space, an outdoor studio, and an outdoor social area. These are all subject to further detailed design, but just how good is that? How good will it be to have these facilities available to our community on the Bellarine? We have such a vibrant arts community who are very proud of the point of difference we have living in a coastal area, and having assets like this will just be incredible for them to use. The concept options we have been reviewed by the Barwon Heads Arts and Community Hub Project Working Group, and they've come back to us and said that option 1 is preferred on the basis that it provides the largest achievable floor area and the best functionality for a local community arts hub. It also minimises any impact to the existing senior citizens' activities, while still enabling the opportunity to create social connections across the whole 2 sites, and that's what we're really about here. RDV, on behalf of the Victorian Government, have drafted a draft grant agreement to Council for the development of this arts and community hub, and this is a fantastic opportunity to aid in the recovery of an industry which has been highly affected by the pandemic. So with all that, I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Once again, Councillor Sullivan has said it very well. I'd only like to add and confirm that the project control group and the project reference group, both mentioned by Councillor Sullivan, will continue to be involved in the design and development processes. And there is the need for the preparation of a governance and activation plan to describe how the facility will be operated and programmed in the future. One little detail: because this land is zoned residential, further processes must be undertaken to gain a planning permit and parking requirements. And indeed, the funding agreement requires the refurbishment or replacement of the existing building located at 5 Clifford Parade, and there may be some extra difficulties in developing as we go forward. There is a local stakeholder group support for this. It's been well and truly consulted through the community, and I recommend we proceed with this standalone proposal as has been recommended.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. Any other comments on this one? I'd just like to echo what Councillor Sullivan and Mason have said. This development is the result of fantastic contribution from the local communities, and we all know how passionate and articulate and well-informed the Barwon Heads locals are in particular. So it's really great that we've been able to work so closely with those community members, and also for the team to be able to work towards refurbishing and refitting something that was already existing rather than getting a shiny new one. So congratulations to everybody involved. This is a really good outcome, and we're hoping that everybody will be happy with the result. Any other comments? Councillor Sullivan to close.
Madam Mayor, this is a fantastic outcome, new breath of life for a much-loved community building in a very fantastic location. This is exactly what the community wanted. They were very vocal all along, and they were correct. So happy to move the recommendation.
Well done. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Okay, item 6 is Tower Road and Sproat Street, Port Arlington. Proposed road and drain upgrade, SRC 294, intention to declare. To be moved by Councillor Mason and seconded by myself. Councillor Mason.
Madam Mayor, there's a minor amendment due to a typographical error in paragraph 7.4e, where it's written $882,842.00 should read $382,842. So there's a $500,000 difference there. I think we should make note of that.
That was an excellent pick-up from you too, Councillor Mason. Eagle eye on the proofreading there. Yep, okay, so we'll be moving the amendment.
Okay, thank you. And so this is to declare a special charge scheme and follow the processes under Section 163(1)A of the Local Government Act 1989. And as just stated, the total cost is $382,842, made up of 3 projects. A standard formula is applied to all calculations of cost, and charges will range from $759 to $4,473 in Tower Road and $2,581 in Sproat Street. The Sproat Street project is a curb and channel, whereas the Tower Road is curb and channel on the north side and ceiling. And so there are 2 different charges in Tower Road, one for the south side and one for the north side. Madam Mayor, there's a 22% contribution by the landowners, and the council bears the balance of the cost to about 78%. And the formula takes this into account, where this component is recognition of the greater community benefit. Not so long ago, there was not so much community appetite for this project, but over the last few years, sentiment has changed, and there have been many submissions requesting upgrades both to the city and through the local member. So clearly this project will improve safety and amenity in Tower Road and Sproat Street, and I recommend that this be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Mason. That was very well summarised. These are always difficult because it's a balance between people wanting the improvements but then also understanding that there will likely be a cost attached. So the benefits to the local residents with this proposal is that there will be safer driving conditions, obviously, improved connectivity and drainage throughout the works or after the works, reduced hazards from water over the road and flooding, and also elimination of dust in summer and mud in winter. And we know that dust has been a huge issue in the region over the years. So there are pros and cons to these. Residents would have the opportunity for feedback through making a submission and being heard at a submissions review panel. And another noteworthy point too is Council would encourage the use of recycled materials for the works. So that's starting to embed our sustainability focus into our activities. Are there any other comments on this one? Councillor Sullivan.
Madam Mayor, I will. This process here outlines all the benefits stated by yourself, but what I believe this is really an issue of has become an issue of safety over the recent years. With development being completed on one end of Tower Road has now become a thoroughfare from many aspects. Now Tower Road is 90% sealed, and what it does is goes over the top of a hill. Now, just on one side near the top of it is where this unsealing is. Tower Road has the position of being one side residential, one side farmland. And it's a nice wide road, so people often ignore the 60 km/h speed limit and travel up to 70 and 80. And what they do is they get up the hill, and then suddenly, without knowing, without seeing it, bang, they're on dirt and gravel, which is a huge safety issue. So I believe the first act we can do in rectifying safety issues on here is sealing this road, getting good gutterage up it in Sproat Street, that is stage 1. But I will just say that I do believe that further safety upgrades need to take place in this stretch of road in particular, and in many areas around the Bellarine as well, where we're having development going out and safety upgrades not keeping in pace or in line. So I'm happy to support this recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Any other comments on this one? Back to Councillor Mason to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Despite the recent change in community sentiment and the fact of this declaration, a formal procedure still must be followed in the near future. The scheme will now be, if it's passed tonight, the scheme will be advertised, and owners will then have 28 days to make submissions either for or against. And a hearings process will follow, and the council will decide on the scheme charges following that. And of course, the usual VCAT appeal processes still apply.
Thank you. Okay, we'll put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Item 7, road renaming due to the Drysdale bypass, yet another one, stage 4, to be moved Councillor Mason and seconded Councillor Aitken. Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. After many years of planning and the recent 18 months of construction, we're getting very close to the opening of the Drysdale bypass, and that will be a wonderful day when that's opened. The project cut through a total of 9 roads, and all of these roads required name changes. 8 have now been renamed. These are High Street, McKiernan Street, Hackwell Place, Benham Street, and more recently Waterson Place, which was the subject of some dispute but was resolved, Red Gum Place, and as Councillor Sullivan only recently said, a stellar decision, using the word stellar, was made in that Wickham's Road was resolved through a creative solution and remained Wickham's Road on both sides of the bypass. And there was an 8th change, Mayall Way, which was a section of Collins Street running northeast from Port Arlington Road, Collins Street to Drakes Road. Now the last street to be named is a section of Port Arlington Road between Oakton Road and Whitcombs Road. And why I mentioned Mayall Way last is that it's relevant to this, in that this could not be done until a small section of Collins Street was renamed. This Mayall Way has now been gazetted, and so the final step can now be taken. This section is to be renamed Collins Street and is an extension of the current Collins Street. The proposal was open for public comment for 30 days, and all submissions were reviewed as per the naming rules for places in Victoria 2016. Of 16 affected property owners, 5 were against. Of these, 2 objections could not be considered as they were contrary to regulations. Names such as Old Port Arlington Road could not be used, and the status quo was not possible. I therefore support the recommendation and commend officers involved for their application in completing this task and achieving general community satisfaction.
Councillor Mason. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Look, my only contribution to this is that clearly this has split the local community in Drysdale because 11 people responded and it was 6-5. So there's actually not unanimous support for this to occur, and we should acknowledge that. But it should be known that we're actually just following the state government's naming rules for places in Victoria. So they did come up with a sensible suggestion to use the terminology of old in front of the Port Arlington name, which is what I understand most of the residents who were against the changing of the name to Collins Street put forward. But unfortunately, prefixes and suffixes are not acceptable under the naming rights legislation, so council is actually hamstrung to be able to do that, even though it was seen as a logical response to be able to keep the heritage of the old Port Arlington Road. And the other point that I do make is that under the legislation and the regulation, and there is some money set aside in the project that affected property owners are compensated to assist them with the name changes. So I'm pleased to see that there is support for those residents that have been impacted by this change. Yep.
Point, Councillor Aitken. Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Madam Mayor, and I endorse the words of Councillor Mason and Aitken. This is the last of those, as stated. They're very much the unfortunate side effect of having our fantastic new bypass soon to open. I will reiterate that we are being forced to do this by the state government. This is not something we put our hand up voluntarily to do. The team, council and officers have put a lot of work into trying to minimise the damage, and as Councillor Mason said, we managed to find a appropriate outcome for Whitcombs Road, which is absolutely fantastic, or stellar, I should say again. We don't really want to do this. We've been forced to do this. It's a bit of dirty work. We're paid to be the bad guys by the state government, but it has to be done. It's part of the rules, so I will be reluctantly supporting the recommendation on the fact that it's the right thing to do now in the position that we're in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Murray.
Yes, thank you. I just really want to comment about the Whitcombs Road outcome. Some time ago, we were in a room with officers and members from Vic Roads and the like, and that was the big one. That was the hurdle that to overcome. And whoever is involved in the negotiations or the discussions to resolve that, I say congratulations, because that certainly was one that was going to split the community down there. So for that to remain as Wickham's Road is a great outcome.
Thanks, Councillor Murray. I think we had a couple of state members to thank for that one. There was involvement from a couple of people there, so that was really good, and obviously our officers as well. Any other comments for this one? Okay, Councillor Mason to close.
Nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
We'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Item 8 is the Council Plan Quarterly Update, March 2020. I've got Councillor Grisbeck to move and Councillor Manane to second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's recommended that we endorse this Council Plan Quarterly Update for March 2020. This update slightly touches on some of the impacts of the COVID pandemic, but we expect the next quarter will be the one that looks very different than this one. It's been a requirement, obviously, because councils had to postpone or cancel some scheduled events and some works. Obviously, the health and safety and well-being of our staff and the community is the focus at the moment. The March update, there are 130 priority actions currently reported on within the council plan, and as at the end of March, 111 are on track, and I think that's a great outcome. There are some new things that we've completed. We adopted a social housing plan. There's been a graduation of the Community Leadership Program graduates, which is really good. Things like completed the Jerringhap Street drain, which was a massive project. And we've welcomed a new youth council, and there are plenty of things to talk about. We constructed a green organics facility as well. So there are a couple of things that aren't started, and I think that they will get going sooner rather than later. And there are some things that need improvement, and I think we will work with the CEO to make sure that we can get these things off the ground. But I think some of them are because we actually can't meet face to face, and some of them are because we're redeployed other staff into some other areas. So thank you to the organisation where we're at now, and I'm hoping that the next quarter report doesn't show too much of a change because of COVID-19.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. Councillor Manane.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking at this quarterly update of Council's plan reminds us, I think, yet again of the vast array of programs that within our community that Council actually do play a very significant role in. And I think it would be timely if we would just pause, I think, and thank Council officers and staff for the progress that they continue to make on these programs, albeit in fairly trying times in a lot of cases. So I'd just like to make that point. I'd allow councillors to reflect on their own portfolios, but on my own portfolio of health and safety of the community, I see they continue to advance a lot of these key projects in a fairly formidable way. As Councillor Gisbert just said, the social housing and affordable housing program continues to march on. The social housing plan has been presented, and Council now have got that presented to the community, and the feedback has now been worked on, and Council officers are developing the implementation plan. So that's going very well. The area of food relief, that program is close to finalisation, and that final report's coming to Council next month, later this month. The matter of homelessness, works commenced with some consultation with several key agencies around security and ultimately around solutions in homelessness in our city, and I note the financial assistance in our budget for the Samaritan House project and Coppards Road on that one, so some real progress being made there. I think it's also worth mentioning the excellent work that Council is doing around healthy eating and active living. We've introduced the water campaign, Choose Water Every Day, I think it's called. And also we've got about 400 virtual and group fitness classes operating, with providing flexible fitness class options for the public. So there's a lot happening, and the report actually mentions a number of other activities in my portfolio that I haven't covered in that short time, and of course many other activities in the portfolios of other councillors. So again, our thanks to the good work of council officers on this work.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Other comments on the council plan achievements so far? Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, there is a lot of great achievements, but I just want to touch on a couple of areas that are behind, one being the integrated transport connections. As you'll know, that when the TNOP came to Council in February, we actually didn't approve of the recommendations, and we were pretty strong in our view that we wanted the state government to re-look at this with Council, to consider more than just the CBD, but to consider the entire municipality. And a couple of the key points that we were very strong on was advocating to the state government for the planning and construction of the Ballerine link. I'm sure the Ballerine councillors here would be very supportive of that, and ask the Minister to put funding into the 2020-2021 budget for the timing and the construction. We also advocated for the inclusion of public transport in the consideration of the TNOP, which was an omission previously, and also to look at planning priorities for public transport, but other means as well, such as light rail, trackless trams, buses, and also cycling and walking. And lastly, that we asked the state government to promptly complete a viability and financial assessment to plan the construction of a transport bridge from Corio Bay and to cater for also all forms of transport. So that's one that's running behind, but probably for good reason, because we asked for more work to be done on that. And secondly was in the area of a thriving and sustainable economy, where we continue to work with the government to deliver projects that revitalise Geelong. Well, that's another area that we're running behind on, particularly with the much-loved Green Spine. And we know that now that state government have full responsibility for Mallup Street, what the community really wants is for the state government to get on and finish the Green Spine, rather with us being left with this little pimple in the middle of Moorabool Street and Yarra. So we really urge and encourage the state government and ask them to reach out to us if there's anything that we can do to support them in finishing this important link in Geelong. And no better time now than Councillor Nelson, no better time than now, given how quiet it is in the streets for that project to quickly and swiftly go ahead.
That's a good point. Thanks, Councillor Contell. Councillor Mansfield.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, in terms of my social inclusion portfolio, we've got a whole range of measures that we're doing really well on, and I think that's going to be even more important in this current time that we're in, that we think about how we can ensure people feel included, given a lot of the social isolation people are experiencing. But some great work there. I did want to touch on some of the areas as well where we are falling a bit behind, and they're related to some of our waste management. So we're not on track for meeting our targets for the percentage of waste being diverted from landfill, and that's probably still a hangover from some of the issues we experienced last year, but we really need to work hard on getting more material recycled or sent to green organics rather than going into landfill. And hopefully our waste strategy will go some way to addressing that. Carbon emissions are really really off track on that one. We're aiming for a 50% reduction over the next 2 years from streetlights, buildings and vehicle fleet use. Again, hopefully our recent-ish power purchasing partnership that we've entered into to source our power from renewable sources will make a bit of a dent in that, but we really haven't moved much towards that target and are quite off track. Similarly, sustainable use of materials in asset construction. We've got an increased focus on that, but we're not quite on target there. And our suburban tree canopy, we've got some some goals to increase our suburban tree canopy, but we're off track on that one. In our draft budget that we've put out for public comment, we've endorsed a tree planting program, which will hopefully again address this. And if that's passed, but they're just some areas where we've set ourselves some targets and aren't quite getting there. Hopefully, we're putting in place some measures. There'll be some areas that I'll be keeping an eye on.
Councillor Mansfield, other comments on the council plan? I'd like to make a couple of noteworthy points. I'm really excited about the adoption of the Shared Trails Master Plan, and again want to congratulate the team on getting that done in a timely fashion. It did take a while, but I think the quality of the work ended up speaking well to what was needed. And also the customer experience strategy, given our role as councillors is essentially the interface with the community, and it's really at the point where customers escalate their complaints. This is really critical to us, and I do congratulate the team, led by Rebecca Leonard down there, on shaping the approach to the community as customers, because it really should lift the accountability and the standard of processes. So that's a really important move for us. Any other comments on the council plan? Councillor Mason.
Thank you, Mayor Asher. Just a couple of small points. Of course, COVID-19 has delayed us on a number of things. The Livestock and Information Exchange feasibility study has been on track, but it's been delayed for a couple of months because of that. And similarly, the cultural strategy has been delayed until August because of current circumstances.
Yep, good point. Okay, so Councillor Grisbeck to close.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One thing that I just wanted to highlight before we finish is that on the 4-year council plan priorities, one of the priorities is working towards having safer roads in Victoria, and you all know that's close to my heart. So we will be expecting the road safety strategy coming to council later in this year in 2020. And that will be coming a towards zero strategy, which we would hope that we would work to have the safest roads in Victoria. Nothing further.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. Okay, I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Okay, item 9, the Quarterly Financial Management Report, March 2020, to be moved by Councillor Aitken and seconded Councillor Grisbeck as our finance portfolio holders.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Look, this is an historic document now because it ends at the 31st of March. And in fact, the interests of the community and also our finance people is actually what's going to happen during the June quarter. During March, what we can report is that COVID-19 had a $1.7 million financial impact on the organisation, and that was predominantly because our leisure and recreation facilities were closed on the 19th of March, so we had 12 days at which they weren't operating during March. What the March financial shows us is that we're running at a deficit of about $15.9 million at the end of March. What we do land on will very much depend on what happens during the June quarter. We're anticipating that COVID-19 during the June quarter will have an $8.7 million financial impact on the organisation. What we can't answer is what cash flow impact COVID-19 is going to make on the organisation. And that is that we don't know the level of delinquency of rates that occur. We've got our fourth instalment, which is due on the 31st of May, Madam Mayor, and it is very difficult for the team to actually try to project what is going to happen, because the reality is until that rate is actually due, we don't know how many people will pay, and we also don't know how many people can't pay. So it's going to be quite fascinating for the organisation to actually see it has a cash flow impact on us as opposed to a significant financial impact for us. But in terms of our March financial figures, some other interesting factors that came out, we actually had a $7 million underspend in our employee costs up until the 31st of March. So that probably meant we could have actually looked differently at the redeployment process. I'm pleased to see that the CEO and the executive management team changed their approach on that, and the council actually is trying to redeploy every single staff member that they can in the organisation. So the CEO and his team should be commended for doing that. Financially, it looks like we certainly had the capacity to be able to do that, but it does add to our deficit levels that we have as an organisation. For Councillor Contell, would be interested to see that most of the deficit actually is associated with capital underspend and also grant timing in terms of federal grants that have come before council. So that's why we have the deficit in our current budget. However, Councillor Contell would be interested that because we didn't spend anything on Osborne House, there's an underspend of $1.42 million available for Osborne House, and I hope Councillor Contell keeps an eye on that so that they do start the work as soon as the master plan is brought back to council and adopted. And the last thing I want to before I make my final comment, because I've got a few minutes left, my second last comment is just on the dividend efficiency. Look, I have challenged the CEO on this issue, and I have challenged the finance team. I do not believe underspend in an area is actually efficient. I actually see the challenge in the efficiency dividend is actually try to look for service improvements and innovation in the organisation. And although financially we may meet the dividend efficiency because we've underspent in our consultancies and we've had reduced utility costs, the real challenge that the CEO should be taking on board is that we really are looking for service improvements and innovation that actually flow through to sustainable financial returns and benefits for the organisation. So I hope when we do move out of the COVID-19 period that the mindset changes culturally, that efficiency is actually about innovation and service improvements in the organisation. And it is a challenge for everybody, but it certainly is something that the councillors from the top down should be requesting of the organisation. And my final comment is actually to use my position as the Chair of Finance to thank all of our staff over the last 7 weeks. Financially, we're just starting to see the impacts of COVID-19, but I think it is important for us to use every opportunity that we have as the councillors, and I want to use my opportunity tonight to thank the 700 staff that are working from home and have since practically the last week of March. But more importantly, I actually want to thank the other 2,000 staff employed by the City of Greater Geelong that haven't been working from home, that have actually continued their service delivery in the roles that they have for the organisation, whether it's in community development, whether it is in cleaning, whether it is in our city works, whether it is in all those services that we do have. And the final cohort of people that I want to thank is actually all those staff that have been redeployed. I don't know what other councillors are doing, but I've actually now gone out of my way when I see the crossing supervisors, and you can clearly see which ones are the redeployed ones compared to the original crossing supervisors. So I actually acknowledge them now every time I drive past, and if I can give them a wave and actually sort of give them the thumbs up, I'm doing it to those staff because I think they should be congratulated that they are taking on roles that they may necessarily didn't want, but they are still contributing to the broader community. So thank you to all our staff in the City of Greater Geelong.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Aiken has carefully and consideredly given me all the information that I'd already written down. So probably just a good time to plug that rates are due on the 31st of May and that there is staff waiting and willing to answer phone calls if you are struggling with paying your rates or you have any issues, that the staff are there to help guide you through that. So that is just a call out to residents and businesses. If there is if you are struggling, please don't hesitate to give the officers a call to see what we can work out for you. And that's probably about it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. Any other comments on the quarterly financial report? No. Councillor Aitken to close.
Nothing further to add,
I thought
Madam
you had
Mayor.
2 more points to make. I'm disappointed. Okay, all those in favour? Thank you. Those against, carried. Item 10, the loan borrowing policy. Again, moved Councillor Aitken, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken.
Yeah, look, this is actually a procedural process that the council has. We have a statutory requirement to review all of our policies, and this is actually our borrowing policy that we do have, so it was up for review. That review concluded that the strategic framework of the borrowing policy did not need to be changed. It just needed to be tidied up in terms of some staff member roles had changed. We now have a chief financial officer, and also in the past we actually used to have to get an allocation under the loan council, and that allocation process no longer occurs. So there isn't a cap on how much council could actually borrow in terms of a kitty of money as there used to be. The council has prudent, sustainable financial borrowing requirements and understanding of its responsibilities to the community financially. So we borrow under that now. Borrowing policy gives the community an understanding of how and why and when we borrow.
Councillor Aitken. Councillor Grisbeck.
Just that the policy has been updated with a new template, and the responsible officer updated to the chief financial officer, and that the reference to the loan council allocation is redundant and removed from the policy. That's the only changes made so far.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. Councillor Aitken, anyone else to comment on this one? Quite procedural. Councillor Aitken, anything further? No, we'll just put that one to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against, carried. Okay, item 11, proposed sale of various properties. Once again, moved Councillor Aitken, seconded Councillor Grisbeck. Councillor Murnane and Councillor Nelson are excusing themselves here. Okay, Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Look, it actually doesn't give me joy under my portfolio responsibility to be the council that's responsible to bring the sale of community assets. I have a personal belief that community assets should only be sold if it's in the community's interest. And in fact, what we're doing tonight is we're not actually making a decision on the sale of these particular 3 sites. What we're doing is we're asking for community feedback on those 3 sites. It's been identified that a site in Purnell Road, Corio, and another site in McHarry's Court. It's actually in Rosewell, for those of us that are locals. And the last one is a fantastic piece of land that could be sold up in Highton, and it may actually be an explanation why we've had a couple of councillors actually walking out of the chamber tonight. Who knows what happens in the wonders of local government. But what we have got is we've got the process that we're now going to the community to say that these sites are potentially for sale, and we try and seek some community feedback on those 3 particular sites. The Purnell Road site is actually the old childcare facility that exists on Purnell Road. We've just recently opened our new $13.3 million community and child hub facility in Purnell Road, and this is one of the old site locations there. So it is good to be able to recoup some funds associated with that site to help build other community assets. The McHarry's Court in Roseville is an interesting piece of land. It actually abuts onto the community centre and the public park there. I think during this process we should find out if there is community interest that it should be public open space, or whether it should be sold for potential housing infill that occur at that site location, and we can only do that by putting it out to public consultation tonight. And the last one is the humdinger of the opportunities that exist in terms of property sales. Come forth, come quick everybody. This is the really big one that we're selling for over the next 2 months. So if anyone's interested out there, have a look at the council agenda. It's number 34 to 40 Esperance Crescent, Highton. It has the best value, and we're looking forward to get the highest bid price that we can get from it. And of course, if we do make a significant amount of funds from it, we will invest it into other community assets that exist. So I hope we do have a lot of interest in that particular site location, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Aitken, some more video promotion talent on display there. Well done. Auctioneer as well. Councillor Grisbeck.
It's hard to follow Councillor Aiken at these times. Look, I think the process is what I like here, and it makes sure that we have the opportunity for the community to have their say on these properties. These are surplus to the city's needs at this point, and as the officers have reached the conclusion that these sites are no longer fit for our needs. So there are 3 lots in this particular paper, but we are intent on doing a bit more of this going forward. So these sites will be sporadically through the next 6 months. We will look to having community feedback on a lot of other places that council own that are surplus to our needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grisbeck. Any other comments on this item? Not at this point. Councillor Aitken to close.
Nothing further to add. They're now potentially for sale.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. So put this one to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Those against? Carried. Not closed. Carried. Final item. We've done well on the time, probably too well, so we can talk at length about the Transformation Program. Item 12, Transformation Program 2.0 Progress Report. March 2020, as Councillor Nelson and Councillor Manane take their seats. This one will be moved by Councillor Murray and seconded by Councillor Contell. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This report asks Council to note the latest update on the Transformation Program 2.0. This program tracks the City's progress against the actions recommended in the 2016 Commission of Inquiry findings. This report is a review of last quarter's achievements as the Transformation Program 2.0 continues the great work undertaken during the first phase of the Transformation Program. The 6 focus areas are civic accommodation, digital modernisation, asset management, advocacy and stakeholder management, people and culture, and service planning and review. There are a number of key achievements for the last quarter, but one that resonates with me is the release of the draft Social Infrastructure Plan, which is out there for public feedback at the moment. There are a number of challenges, of course, with the COVID-19, and the program is moving forward, but there's focus areas have shown advancement at different speeds. To quote our CEO, the ability to pivot towards addressing the various challenges is a strong indication we are maturing as an organisation and have lifted our ability to be more agile. Areas I am especially pleased with are civic accommodation, digital modernisation and people and culture, whilst the appointment of personnel in key corporate affairs and advocacy roles will see these areas lift over coming reporting periods. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Contell.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to add too much further, only to highlight one area that is not on schedule, and I've talked to this over many years, and that being asset management. And I think we've been reasonably poor in managing our assets, at least for the last decade that I've been here. When I say that, I'm not being critical of the organisation in terms of physically looking after the assets, but I don't know if we, as an organisation, and particularly as councillors, understand the life cycle costs of our assets, and often we look at the cost of building or buying something, but do not take into consideration the lifetime costs of that asset, whether it be mobile or fixed plant, or whether it be bricks and mortar. And that is an area that we're still running behind in, but I'm encouraged that we're now looking at that under our CEO, and hopefully we do put the focus into this area that then gives councillors and officers a better transparency to these costs in the future, because it's extremely important and helps you negotiate procurement in the future as well, because it's not just what you pay for initially. Secondly, it's the asset register restructure. Obviously, it's important that we have a good feel for what our assets are and where they are, and some of that was highlighted tonight as well. So, good work being done, obviously, in many areas, but still more work to do.
Councillor Contell. Councillor Harwood.
Madam Mayor, I had 2 points marked. One, Councillor Contell's touched on the asset management project work, which has been articulated there. I just want to reinforce the comments about the importance of it. I guess it's what we don't know in some aspects as well with our asset management and their true value, what their true worth to the organisation and ultimately the community can be. So the work continues there, which is a good sign, but obviously there's a lot more to be done. I think it was a comment made not even that long ago that we're still feeling some of the effects of amalgamation, where things sort of went onto the back burner or to the back room and were never found for years and years and years until we actually started to piece things together. We found bits and pieces from Shire of Corio, Bellarine, South Barwon, and on it went. So we're still piecing together this jigsaw of our region, but at least the work's continuing and is in a far better position. My second point was in relation to the appointment of the Government's Relations Officer and the advocacy level or lead. This is a really good appointment to our organisation, particularly in relation to lobbying and looking at available funding for the organisation, which has been a bit of a bugbear at times. We have to make sure we stay in sync as much as we can with our federal and state members, and it's critical, particularly around election times. We know what happens, and we know you need to be in the right position for the right moment, and I think hopefully this appointment will help us in that particular area and strengthen our relationships, where in the past we've, for no good or bad reason, we just haven't been perhaps in sync as much as we could be. So hopefully this will alleviate that and put us in an even stronger position when we need to be. So I think that's a good result.
Thanks, Councillor Harwood. Councillor Grisbeck.
Thank you. And following on from Councillor Harwood's comments, and I think the stakeholder management plan is the key in that person's work to pull together for us, because I think that's something that we don't quite have a handle on at this point. The other thing I wanted to note was our monitor, Peter Dorling, has made comment, and he's really pleased with to see the social infrastructure plan reaching the point where it can be presented for community feedback, and he says it will be an important reference document for this and the future council. And he also notes that there's been some things that have changed in City of Greater Geelong given the COVID-19 pandemic, and it was necessary for some policies and things, support packages for staff. And he says that the administration and councils have embraced the challenge in difficult times. So it's great to hear from our monitor. There was one other thing I wanted to touch on, and was around the people and culture piece. And I think what we will expect for the next update is that while some of the focuses of people and culture might not have been getting the traction that they would have, they have done a stellar job just really reacting to the COVID-19 and getting the amazing work that's been done in the redeployment space. So I expect that the next report might not be look as much progression, but we actually need to take into account that they have done some stellar work in that space. So that's probably all I've got, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Grisbeck. Councillor Mason, you look like you're going to say something. No? Councillor Manane.
Just a comment. I think that in my years of finance, I've very rarely seen a company fail who had good balance sheet management. It's a natural thing to concentrate in business on your P&L, and I think we all do that, and we look after our own personal budgets on a P&L, but asset management, good businesses never fail with good balance sheet management, and we have such a large balance sheet, nearly $3 billion I think the number is, and there will always be assets that are coming to the end of their term or can be put to greater use, and the more active we are in that way, the better we'll be as an organisation. So I just encourage Martin and his team to continue that good work and getting the asset register in its best possible shape is obviously the start to that work.
Thank you, Councillor Manane. Good point. Councillor Aitken.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Look, I only just wish to comment on one particular section, which is the digital modernisation project. It's essentially what it's trying to do is take the organisation into 2020 in terms of its IT systems. I've been shocked since I've become the finance portfolio chair to find out a lot of our platforms that we use are actually pre-amalgamation and associated with amalgamation. Like, it's actually quite frightening when you have a look. And then when you go back and actually have a look at the organisation's spend over the last 25 years since the 6 councils became one in Geelong, one of the biggest underspend areas has actually been in IT. And so we're behind the ball massively in this particular area of responsibility. But this council should take credit, because in our proposed budget for 2021, we've actually earmarked $6.5 million specifically towards digital modernisation. And that's actually the largest expenditure that's actually ever been earmarked in any budget since the council was merged in 1992. So the transformation project has been fascinating to inherit it. It's been fascinating for us to try to influence it, and I'm pleased that certainly with digital modernisation we're influencing as much as we can as councillors. We're now at, as Councillor Harwood has mentioned, we're at 2.5 years of our life. We've only got a 3-year life of this particular council, and we're down to the last 5 months now. One of the pleasing aspects for us that we should take solace from in terms of our participation, we have made sure that the transformation project has actually been implemented. It does have varying speeds at which some aspects of it, but importantly we have been able to make the significant decisions that are needed with it, and I'm really pleased that digital modernisation project is one of those and certainly has been endorsed. So we may not actually see some of those projects because I think only Councillor Gresbeck and I are the only two have said that we're restanding at this point in time in October. We may see that most of our colleagues aren't here in October, but if Kylie and I are here, we'll continue. Councillor Contell, does anybody else want to indicate if they're standing again? 5 months left, everybody. I'm here. I've got one from Contell and one from Gresbeck, one from Aiken. Anybody else standing?
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Probably don't need an auction right now, Councillor Aiken.
If Kylie and I and Eddie are the only 3 that are left, you can rest assured that we'll continue the good work that this council has done over the last 2.5 years, and in October, if we are re-elected, that'll be 3 years of good work that this council's done that Eddie and I and Kylie will become custodians of.
Thank you, Councillor Aitken. Has anybody else got comments on the transformation program? Okay, Councillor Murray to close.
Nothing further, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we'll pop this last item to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Declare the meeting closed at 8:35.